Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 128 of The Rewind, our weekly podcast, keeping track of the development of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and also keeping the community fires lit for those interested in the project. This week, we'll talk about the double shot of pre-alpha testing VR announced in the November newsletter. And as always, we'll be putting our lore keepers to the test. It's time to stock up on some sleep because there's an all-nighter looming on the horizon. So equip your fuzzy slippers and warm blankets. And join me, Theric, and my hibernating co-host, Desrin, for this week's Rewind. Well, good morning, Desrin. How are you doing? We're recording on a Saturday morning, which is a little different for us. So we're trying to acclimate to the morning atmosphere. How are you doing?
Fine. I'm here.
I
should take advantage of the morning voice and be like, "Hello, ladies." Like
that's
that's
totally the first thing I noticed. Yeah, when we first got on the call, I'm like, "Ooh, we both have morning voice."
Yep. So listeners enjoy.
The downside of morning voice is it comes along with morning brain sometimes. So,
we'll get to that. But that was a great intro for this episode. I thought. Thanks for that. That was hibernating is very appropriate right now.
I'm totally down for hibernating if the opportunity ever presents itself. I'm fine with a good hibernation. It's we get long winters here, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get through them. But
I think when it comes to our early start this morning, though, it's really good that we get to do this, I think, and not skip this week because holy, I was away and up in the mountains, and unfortunately I had internet this time, and the newsletter dropped. And I was like, immediately, like, no one around me is going to understand my excitement, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get home and record this. So,
yeah, you've been holding it in this whole time. You haven't been able to talk about it.
Yep, I'm ready.
You're ready. Nice. Well, everybody's ready, including our adventuring party, who is always ready for an adventure. We got Ziplocs, as always, on the Dark Mer Rogue, Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsosaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archive Summoner, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Acera Avienda on the Elf Ranger, Churro Dude on the Halfling Direlord, and of course, Galarine Moonsong on the Elf Ranger. So thank you to our adventuring party for keeping us on this journey. If you're looking for a group and you want to join the party, you can head on over to the Patreon campaign that's linked in the description and in the show notes, where you can pick a tier that works for you, or you can take the more flexible option and you can hit that super chat button during the premiere or the super thanks button after the show. It's only through your support that we are able to do things like give away the pledges we've done. We continually try to improve the audio and the visual quality of this show, and and let us know you enjoy the show. That's how we know that everybody's interested in what we're doing. So that's why we do what we do. We are always very thankful for all of you and everyone who finds the Rewind each week and every week. And it's a privilege to absolutely have your support. So with that, onward, Desrin.
And very, very much upward.
This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. Well, there's certainly no need to beat around the bush. So let's get right to the headline that captured our attention from the news, the November 2022 newsletter from VR. So they announced the next pre-alpha session has been scheduled for December 3rd, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific. And they did say this will be a 24-hour test. So the servers are going to be open until 10 a.m. Pacific on December 4th. So that's Saturday through to Sunday next weekend. So
and
right
there
away,
was much rejoicing and celebration. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is, I'm grinning ear to ear.
Me too, man. I was so excited when I saw this. Now, the thing is, they said the goals for this 24-hour test are centered on server and client performance. Basically, they want to see if the efforts they've made these months since the last test to optimize the game's performance, both at a client and at a network level, were successful. I don't think it's actually been months. I put months, but I think the last one was October, right, Des?
Yeah. I mean, we're creeping up on. It'll be months by the time we get to the test, right?
That's true. Not now, but by the year. Yes, exactly. Technically months.
Yes, I'm technically validating you there.
Technically, actually. So let's just quickly refresh our memories about what they said those optimizations were, because you'll recall they had a lot to do with frame rates, and there was an issue with GPU memory being overutilized that they wanted to address. So that's exciting that they feel like they've got those, perhaps ready to test again, but there's still more, because VR also said that beyond performance and stability, there's a few items that have been updated.
Oh yeah, they're not just working on the one thing, and that's
right.
That's all. We have to say that all the time, but this is there's plenty of other stuff going on here. So
there is, there's lots going on, and so those things that they've also updated are classes in combat, itemization, new vendors, a new and unique quest type, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Ooh. Some art updates. Another one we're going to talk about in a minute is a new dungeon area that players can begin exploring around level 5. Oh boy, you're speaking my language this morning, Des. And so basically lots of new things to discover, they said. And that's actually only half of the big announcement, because the other big news from this newsletter is that VR finally announced they're planning to have the CohhCarnage stream, which is going to be live, unguided gameplay of Pantheon during a subsequent pre-alpha session, tentatively scheduled for the following weekend on Saturday, December 10th. However, asterisk, tentative, VR did say the date is still tentative, depends on the performance results from the December 3rd session.
Yep.
So,
I mean, can't be much more clear than that. It's like, hey, this is tentative. This is our goal, tentative, goal. And here's what's going to get to decide whether we meet that goal or not. This is perfect.
Yep. I mean, and that's right. So let's dig into this a little bit more deeply, and share some of our thoughts. Obviously, like we've both been saying, it's exciting. We had sort of a nervous tension. I think when we ended last week's episode, we maybe talked a little bit after the show off the air, sort of saying like, oh boy, hope we get that December test. We were a little bit of holding our breath, that we thought maybe it was a chance it gets pushed into the new year, but I think we're both a little bit relieved and breathing a little easier now. 2022 will not be the year of the lone pre-alpha test. So,
yeah, true.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's one thing that I want to sort of ask you about. But my first immediate reaction when I read this was with regard to their plans. It's probably a good idea, whether the follow-up test is on the 10th, whether it's going to go ahead or not. We're going to have a good idea whether that's going to happen based on what our experience is. If you're a pre-alpha tester on December 3rd, I think we're going to see it firsthand. We're going to say it's going to be apparent.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty obvious.
Yeah. How did the game perform? Were we still seeing frame rates? Actually, it's kind of interesting for me because, like I said last week, I've rebuilt my system since the last PA test.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, this is going to be especially exciting for you.
It really is, because I kind of, I never knew. I mean, I know that they had some issues. Obviously, they've talked about it, but I didn't know how much of that was them, how much was my system, that kind of thing. So basically, we're going to be finding out if the game's ready for prime time. So you've alluded to it. You think they're on track. This is the right plan they got going here, Des. What's your overall sort of take on their attack on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is pretty much what I think we were asking for, or hoping for, whatever.
Right.
Like that they would do a test before the co-stream, just to make sure that everything's solid enough to share with that wider audience. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier. First, they're super clear about that tentative date. And also like that whole go, no go, that's going to be based on the results of the test, letting everyone know why it will, potentially change. But yeah, I think it was the right call. We'll see how the test goes, of course. If they move that stream date, either with like a new date or just like indefinitely, in the worst case scenario, I'm sure a lot of the community is going to be like wondering what went wrong. And so I think it'll be important that if that does happen, that at least they give some follow up, indication just to make sure that the non-PA community isn't in the dark again. Just kind of throwing that out there. But overall, I have really high hopes, and I think if they've been improving over the last month and a half, 2 months, this is surely going to be a win.
Yeah, I think so too. It would be good to hear, reasons if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't go forward for the 10th, and understanding why. It'd be interesting if you're a viewer of Cohh to see sort of how he's talking about this on his stream. I don't watch Cohh's streams regularly, so that's something that maybe if you're in the community and you do watch Cohh play regularly, you could maybe add in sort of what he's talking about with this. So and what he expects, because it'd be good to hear sort of his perspective on this for sure. There was another point that I wanted to make, and it's something that I saw in some of the discussions around the community, that it's a little bit of a short notice on this PA test. Sometimes they've usually given us 2 weeks ahead of time. So I know there's some folks in the community that have told me they already have plans. They won't be able to do the December 3rd test next weekend, and that's totally understandable. I'm like so fortunate that I actually don't have anything going on Saturday, next Saturday,
Way to
Sunday,
rub it
next
in.
week. Yeah, I know, but it's important that I don't want it to impact VR's ability to get the metrics they need to meet their threshold for success, right? Like, I think it's important that they are able to get as much input as they can.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they talked about some numbers last time, getting to 500 people at once in a single zone and all that, but so I guess I'll kind of expect the same this time. Even if people can't make time for it because of the short notice, just because, I don't know, I have a feeling that a lot of people may have upped their pledges to PA after the last session. I also think, since testing started again, more of the, I would use your word, hibernating PA testers may be a bit more aware that that stuff's going on.
Right.
And I'm sure they won't have any problem getting people into the Cohh stream, of course, eventually. Either, because I'm sure now that people have a heads up, they're gonna be maybe not taking time off or but like expecting that coming, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to participate in the same stream that goes in. But yeah, I think they'll be fine with numbers, just because I think after that long hiatus of no PA, and then PA sessions start and they're talking about, and I know this is kind of a meme at this point, but the more PA sessions soon. I think a lot of people know that's coming, and they upped, they're ready.
Yeah. And like you said, there's I think sort of maybe two communities that maybe are more in tune now, like the Cohh's community, where his viewers would be tempted, if they want to play with him, to get in ahead of time to sort of get familiar or get a feel for what it's like to be a PA tester in Pantheon. And also I want to mention Sir Medieval's community, because
totally.
Sir Medieval has been, got a shout out from Joppa. He's also been making more regular content about it, and I think just sort of becoming more active. And he's got quite a large community himself. So I think that the same thing might apply there. And maybe this increases the numbers and gets them maybe even more data than they were expecting. So
yeah.
So, but let's talk about that new dungeon. How about this, Des? New dungeon area, players can begin exploring around level 5. Now, this has been pretty kept under wraps by VR, and we really don't know what this is, right?
Yeah. We don't have any specifics other than just the tease they did, I think, last month about that overland dungeon in Thronefast that, we kind of, at first we had thought it was Seville, because they said Seville was, in Thronefast, but it's obviously something different, and that's really exciting. And I think we're of the same mind about the importance of a low-level dungeon, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just love that there's a low-level dungeon to facilitate early player grouping. I mean, assuming it's group content, I think that's a pretty safe bet. I've been a proponent of this for a long time. In fact, I think that it's something that I've talked about extensively. And if we look at actually skip ahead to the roadmap to alpha a little bit on the newsletter, we got a little bit more detail about what this dungeon is supposed to accomplish. And we haven't really had any previous updates in this one bullet point on the roadmap, and that is improve starting experience for new players. It's been in progress, and this month it was updated. So just to recap what they're talking about, they say it's about developing tutorialization to introduce players to gameplay basics and add and refine content in starting areas to provide a robust and engaging early game experience. So according to this month, they said the first pass of early level dungeon environment in Thronefast, designed to support a robust grouping experience with a lower barrier of entry. So there is no assumption there. It is a grouping experience. Oh, yeah. It's a group thing.
To some degree.
Definitely.
That kind of leaves it open to me, though, that it might give some flexibility for full group versus maybe partial group. Because I think partial groups are extremely common at, low levels, right? So I'm hoping a little bit that it is a bit of both, because they, typically seem to favor flexible kind of setups. So yeah.
I know, man. Everybody's gonna flock to this place. I guarantee. Like, if you're a PA tester, it's
especially
everybody's
24 hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to want to do? I mean, they're going to want to get this done. But, there are different styles of dungeons in Pantheon. Back when they did their, what month it was at least 3 or 4 months ago, they talked about the dungeon design focus. And they did talk about the difference between, what do they call it, sort of standard or regular dungeons and then overland dungeons. So it's not necessarily like a cave or an underground or anything like that. It could just be an overland area, because they do consider those to be dungeons. So we don't know what this is. It could be it could be either one. We don't know. So I'd be really excited to, even having that aspect of it being a mystery is exciting to me, right?
Yep. Actually, that's a good little bring up is, we didn't get like a whole full patch notes like we did with the catch up, the year catch up thing.
Right.
But I love that they are leaving some mystery. Not just in this, but in that little tidbit about a ton of other, or however they phrased it, but a ton of other things to discover. They just kind of leave it in there. I've rambled a lot about things I enjoy about Mortal Online 2 in their patch notes, because they do that. They're like, added 30 POIs in the world. And that's just it.
Tell you what they are.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
And I think that's really conducive with a game that should have some mystery. If it's all in the patch notes and laid out, it kind of Anyway, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Absolutely. I mean, and speaking of mystery, they did add a new and unique quest type. So again, so many possibilities. What is this? Is it a perception storyline? Is it a class race quest kind of thing? Maybe it's like some sort of mini epic weapons quest. Low level epic weapons quest. Who knows? The kind of one of the thoughts I had was that this may have been something that they've been wanting and planning to have to go along with the co-stream, because it seems like it could be like a centerpiece, or like something to help maybe provide him with a little bit of a, I won't say structured, but some sort of a guide rope to go along, like something to do that he can take his audience along to do as part of his stream. And this is completely speculation on my part and just a random thought that crossed my mind. Maybe that was what they wanted to get it fully fleshed out before they could do the stream, in addition to the optimizations, of course. But not that was just a smokescreen, but maybe this was something to go along with it. It's an interesting thought. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, yeah, this was I would say this was actually the biggest curveball of this producer's letter for me. Because as far as we know, perception is kind of on the back burner. As far as actually putting content in, and I know the structure has a lot of, I don't know if it's design complete, but it's more or less, set up to be, whenever they have time to get it all put in. So I'm not sure if this is related, or if it's kind of another prototype, like we saw in the Fair Thale stream, legendary, way back in the day. So that was also Co.
Yep.
But that was also a prototype, as far as it seems, right? So I don't know. There's just not much to go on. I'll definitely be looking for it, though. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
So. Like the way that they've teased this test, I'm not an overnight. Like I'm not a 24-hour kind of player. Like I will never. I don't think I have it in me to play for 24 hours. This makes me want to play for 24 hours. I got to tell you. I told my wife, I'm like, well, it starts at noon my time on the Saturday. I'm like, she's like, okay, are we? You're gonna have dinner? Like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, we'll see. I don't know. I think I might go hardcore on this one with some of our guildies or whatever, but we'll see.
I think it would be the biggest kind of crazy fun thing if this did have to do with the new dungeon too. Just a whole package of, new stuff. But at the same time, didn't the dungeon say it was like around level 5 or something? It was like,
yes.
And so I kind of expect perhaps a little bit of time it's going to take to get there. So if it is combined, you might be playing a bit longer than you think.
Agreed. So I'm kind of gearing myself up for it. So that's the big headline from this newsletter, and we haven't even gotten to the calendar for December yet.
Or the roadmap.
So let's or the roadmap. We talked about a little bit of it, but there's more. So let's get to the calendar, because this is what December is looking like for VR in terms of their content. Now, like I said, the 3rd and 4th, that's next weekend for the test. And then on the following week, on the 8th, Thursday, December 8th, we've got the next Bring Out Your Devs, and we get to talk to JN for the VIPs. So
yes!
This is exciting. We haven't talked to JN for quite a while. I mean, we heard him on the last dev stream they did with the whole
just
group,
Raz and Joppa.
Yeah.
But hey, is this going to be like the first Bring Out Your Devs that you might actually attend? Huh?
Shh, Desrin, don't say that. I may not have attended the last few. It's not that I'm not interested. It's just that I'm not interested.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's just, honestly, it's a matter of time and resources and stuff like that. But I definitely will be hanging out for this one to see what JN has to talk about, and just have a friendly chat. So that's always fun. And then of course on the calendar, the live stream with Co is
TBA
to be announced. Yep. In terms of the dates, like we said. And then the follow-up, the December newsletter, comes to us just before Christmas on December 22nd for the monthly newsletter for December. So so that's the calendar. Anything on there does that?
Well, this is probably super minor, but so to me, at least the folks that can see this visually, the background looks a lot like bits we've seen from the Merc in Wild's End.
It does.
But last month, if you recall, we found out that everyone seemed to kind of have shifted focus to Thronefast and Aventur's Pass. And, though it's kind of hard to tell from the shot, it doesn't look super different from what we've seen before. So, either it's some new area or just, in my opinion, kind of a odd choice to use a screenshot of an area that doesn't look like it's really been updated since like a year ago.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. It looks like it's the Merc with the new lighting, with the day-night cycle implemented, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's probably, if I had to guess, I do think you're right. I think it is the Merc, and it's just with the new day-night cycle implemented. But that's also, I thought, like, I don't know, it kind of makes you wonder, like, can the Merc be not murky? Can the sunlight penetrate
exactly.
it? Can it
We're
get
seeing
in there and
this the beautiful like sunset, right? But no like fog. Like, I mean, you've got to have fog in the Merc. Yeah. Anyway, it's just totally like off track, right? But I couldn't help but notice, and I'm like, that's just an odd choice, and I don't want to get all like make a lot of it, right? But it just, I couldn't help but notice after we've been seeing a lot of Aventur's Pass, Thronefast kind of like shots. Yeah.
I find the theme lately has been showing off the dawn and dusk
That's
in the game.
probably more. Yeah, you're probably right.
I think they're really proud of it. So that's that. Now let's move on to the roadmap to alpha for a few updates this month. Nothing too substantial on the roadmap was updated.
I beg to differ.
Yeah, well, Desert, not to be long-winded, of course, but he'll have his thoughts. So, starting off in classes and combat, they did say they continued balance passes and review of ability acquisition placements. Ability acquisition placements. What is that?
That's kind of an interesting way to say it, right? I think this is just kind of like, when each class gets their abilities and techniques. Like that's, I can't imagine what else it would be.
I mean, other than like where you get them, like in the world,
I mean, they did mention new vendors.
Yeah, they did. So to be determined, I guess. Now the next one, zones. So some of the 2 bullet points on this one, they added some visual polish is ongoing for the points of interest in Thronefast, and then they also said overhaul of Thronefast city layout, including gates, bridges, walls, towers, and other structural elements, has been implemented to more closely match concept art, intended scope, and aesthetic standards. So, yeah.
Dude, this is a huge one. It's something that's kind of been on my mind for a long time, and I know a lot of people remember back to that whole making of a city stream from like 5 years ago. Like it's one of my favorite streams, right? But it's noted that there wasn't much follow-up to it. We saw a lot of gray box and such, but never anything beyond. So yeah, lots of amazing concept art from that era as well, but which they know, to try to make it more like the concept art. But yeah, so I think it's safe to get ahead of this a little bit, since obviously Thronefast City was never finished in the first place, it seems. So now they've got their art pipelines kind of set up. I think it's time to move forward with what was started, 5 years ago now, in a sense. And I'm honestly so excited. I think it's going to take a while, for sure. It's a capital city. It's huge, and it's going to require a lot of manpower. But when it's playable, man, I think it's going to bring a lot to the feel of the world. Like it's going to be quite the spectacle.
Yeah, this makes me want to go back and look at the concept art more closely.
You should watch that stream. It's such a good stream. Probably one of the best streams of
the making of a city stream. You mean?
City, yeah.
Oh, I've watched it many, many times. I did a video all about it. Like I did a tour of the city with lore, attached to the points that they talked about on the stream. So, I really liked how it was set up before. I mean, obviously that was before the refactor, so there's that aspect of it as well. But I thought it was set up in a really neat way, and there was a lot of work done on it. So, do
you recall the recent concept art where they kind of showed the docks area? Yes, the docks. So I think that might have a lot to do with it. So this is kind of rearranging a bit, but also making everything make a little bit more sense with the current idea.
Sure.
And I like that new concept art, by the way. As far as like layout, I mean, because you got to have a cool docks area for the oh my gosh, what's the sea called, or the inlet?
Well, the Bethrail Sea is to the north.
Oh, Bethrail Sea. Good job, man.
Yeah. No problem. I'm good for that. But yeah, I mean, they did have to add in the docks, because they certainly didn't show that on the Making of a City stream. There was no docks. There was basically, I don't want to get too deep into it here, but there was basically, the city was divided into 2 halves. When you went to the front gate, there was the left side and the right side. And the left side was like the military and the barracks, and there was a church, like a temple or a church or a bank, I think, over there. And then the right side was like the vendor area. And then there was also another temple to some of the other human deities over there. So I remember they talked about it. I just, I still see it very clearly. And I wonder how much different it needed to be just to add in docks, or if there's something else.
I'm guessing that there's a bit of rearranging. Maybe has to do with some terrain changes. We'll see. But I do hope that kind of split that they did remains, because that's just, because the big deal about that was kind of like how it kind of symbolizes a bit of the culture, I guess,
the lore,
right? And
the lore and the Arches of Havensong were front and center. They were right on the right side, right next to the sort of vendors in the market area. And the Arches of Havensong are extremely important in terms of the lore and why they're there. And that's it just is what it is. They have to be there somewhere.
I actually really look forward to seeing updates about this, if they're willing to share them. They've been pretty closed-hand about Thronefest City since the stream. Yeah. So I wonder if they want to show it or if it's going to be like a more big reveal. But I want to see the updates on this, because it's a, we've seen Sir Hirith, Capital City progress, right? But there's something about Thronefest that just resonates with everyone, I think, and I want to see a little bit of updates would be cool. But anyway,
yeah, I mean, of all the players' cities, of all the players starting cities, I would venture to say Thronefest, maybe Fairthale will be the biggest, the most detailed, I would say. I mean, like you said, we've seen Sir Hirith, and the other races, like, we're not even getting over to Rainfall, but just in terms of like, what are the other starting races on King's Reach now? I'm trying to remember. No, Broken Maw is on Rainfall.
Oh, King's Reach. Oh, sorry.
Right. I was thinking, but that's the point I was trying to make, is that, the ogres, it's not going to be this huge, complicated, city. It's going to be, they're sort of
Reach,
disorganized
and broken
just
as humans,
a race,
and elves and halflings.
Yeah, humans, right, exactly. So it's in so when we get to Fairthale, I mean, they're gonna have to put in a lot of work. But I would say even Thronefest is probably bigger and more detailed than Fairthale will be. But
we'll see. We've never seen Fairthale. Well, the city, Fairthale City.
There's one old screenshot of inside Fairthale City. But
you're talking like 2015. Yeah,
like the Anadem chamber. There's a gray box shot of that. But anyway, moving on from that, you're right, though. There was more to the roadmap here than maybe I gave them credit for. Another thing they talked about is new custom grass, terrain texture, and flora created and implemented into Thronefest's bio.
I'm unashamedly going to say that this is my favorite part of the newsletter.
What?
Seriously. Like,
I don't think you've had enough coffee, Des. I think you need some more coffee.
No, it's not the coffee. This has been like a long time coming. Like, I am dying to see what they come up with. I really feel like it's going to completely change the look of the environment. I've been waiting for it since the HDRP, part 2 stream, when I was complaining about the ground texture enough that I think Chris Rowan maybe was like, "Don't worry, it's temporary. It's temporary."
You got the attention of the CEO with your critique.
I mean, it's just looked like a blur. It's just a blurry coloring, and it's
melted ice cream.
Yeah, and I'm so surprised, or not surprised, but just that they didn't use a screenshot of it for the newsletter or like the monthly schedule. Like, it kills me, and it's a huge tease. Like, I need to see it. Like, I hope it's the improvement that I see in my head. Like, I don't want to be disappointed, right? But the ground texture and the grass appearance and all the flora, like, that is a massive part of the environmental look and feel, and I just want to see it.
Yeah, I know. Well, again, I know you've been excited when they've shown that in the past. So, I'm hey man, great, that's awesome. I'm glad that makes you excited to look at.
I mean, of the two of us, who would have thought I'd be the one excited about grass?
Oh, so many layers to that.
All right.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying there's a lot of layers to that. I'm down.
More visual updates though.
Right. And the next one, speaking of visual updates, they talked about dynamic cave and subterranean lighting has been implemented. Yep. Significant performance gains have been achieved by completing our texture streaming process and converting existing textures for objects and terrain to be streamable. So there's sort of two things here. Now, the second point there is more related to what you were just talking about with the terrain, texture, flora, fauna, that kind of thing. But
a little bit.
this, yeah.
The cave stuff, to tackle that first. I mean, they just brought that up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, yeah, we're working on this, and now newsletters here. Yeah, we did this. So I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Hopefully we have some caves to go in and test this out.
Yeah, they seem like they're very interested in like showing this off.
Well, one might note that certain screenshots that were released from the last PA test session were in a cave-like structure, and you may note that the lighting is perhaps a bit odd. So, yeah, a little old out there. But the second point here, the performance gains due to completing the texture streaming process and converting existing textures, like this was a really interesting one. I honestly, I love when they give a little bit of detail on stuff like this, but I was a little quizzical on the whole completing our texture streaming process, since I was under the impression that was already functional. Yeah, I'm not the only one.
I hear you. No, it struck me the same way too, but I don't trust myself when it comes to the technical aspects of things like that, because I always feel like whenever I think that, there's always some aspect that I've forgotten about or I've overlooked, and it makes sense. Usually, honestly, I kick it to you to explain it because you have a better mind for the technical side of things than I do. But I did think the same thing. Like, I thought we were I thought it was already doing that. I thought that was sort of the thing that was happening already.
Yeah, and I mean, to be clear, I might be mistaken or remembering something phrased a little bit differently, but either way, I'm very glad that this is set up and working and seems to be giving such a big benefit. And honestly, if this wasn't in for the last test, I am not at all surprised that performance wasn't great. Because this is a huge part of open world games, just as a little bit of background. Because certain other games that may not be completely seamless or open world, the problem is that basically everything in the zone has to be loaded up and ready all the time. And so this texture streaming basically allows not everything needs to be in process, I guess you could say, which lowers performance like a considerable amount. So this is hopefully going to make a massive difference, and I'm glad to see it. I just was like, wow, okay. I mean, it makes sense if that wasn't in.
Yeah.
Actually, on that kind of technical note, in the vinyl section, kind of skipping back here a little bit, but they noted improved entity culling, faster rendering of entities at longer distances. So we kind of mentioned this the other week, if I remember right.
We did. Yeah.
But I kind of think being able to see players and creatures from far away is really, really important. So this is another thing I'm really looking forward to getting a feel for when we have the test, to see how they kind of dialed that in a bit. Because, I mean, obviously performance is important. Mortal, I know I always bring this up, but there's just so many parallels. They had... that was a big detractor for a lot of people, was that you would kind of look at people far away and you wouldn't have any information about them because the way their network was set up, you could see a player moving, but you couldn't see their name or their guild, or like you just kind of saw a body, because there's only a certain amount of information that you want to keep network to keep performance good. And so obviously you can't just have everything, in the zone with all the information for everyone all at the same time. But there's a balance, right? And I know there's improvements that can be made. Mortal actually made improvements on this front as well. So seeing it also in Pantheon, I just, it's really important, and happy to see it.
You know what's funny? This is so ironic and such a weird coincidence, but I was playing Embers Adrift last night, and I was just soloing. I was just trying to get some experience, whatever. And I was in an area where it was mostly animals. Everything in the game is mostly animals. There's very few actually human models. But I'm sitting there on a hill, and I'm just sort of getting some health and energy back or whatever. And I look across, and I see a human model. I'm like, oh, it must be another player. But I was sitting there I had a lot of health to regen, so I had to sit there for a long time. And I was just watching this one player, or this one model, and I'm like, it's got to be a player, right? It's a human. There's no humans around here. There's no bandits in this area. There's nothing. But they weren't moving. They were just standing there, like literally not moving at all for like 10 minutes. So I'm like, okay, now I got to go investigate and see what's going on over here, because they were so far away that I could see the model, but if I clicked on them, I didn't get any information, right? There was no NPC nameplate, there was no player nameplate, nothing. So I didn't know. So I eventually got close enough, and it was a unique named mob, a human mob in a completely area with complete animals and no other human creatures. And I'm like, that's kind of cool that I wasn't able to tell from that far away, that I had to get close enough to see it, like to actually investigate. And I think that's one of those things that, like, if it's the same thing we're talking about, where the information just wasn't available to me because it was culling that information because I was at a distance, right? I could see the model, but I couldn't see any identifying information. I think that kind of is a good thing. If you can't have that information from too far away.
Well,
right?
so that's another
bounds.
thing is they can adjust that, to be like, hey, you can tab out to this distance,
right?
But not.
And I find the tab distance for that is very short.
Yes,
actually.
it is. But that can be separate. Semi-related, but pretty separate. They could adjust that. I think the main point is just that you can see something, right? Especially when we get to like large creatures, like, you want to be able to see that from a long way. But can't wait to see how this plays out.
For sure. The next point on the roadmap was about player models. We got the ongoing story of the Darkmer models. It says work is ongoing to finalize the materials and textures for Darkmer models, and work has begun on initial hairstyles for new models. So the Darkmer certainly are taking a little longer than maybe was expected, because they did say it was going to be fairly quick. But again, there's lots of other stuff going on in the background. We talked about it already, that we were surprised at some of the things that are going to be updated for this upcoming PA test. And I guess Darkmer models just took maybe a bit of a backseat to that stuff.
I don't think that's the case. I think the takeaway from this is that there's actually a lot of parallel work going on. Because it's not like they can only work on the Darkmer models or the Archive, hopefully. But they can do tasks alongside others, if they have little time gaps or whatever. And so I'm pretty excited about hairstyles, seeing some work, just because I think that's a good sign, for the finalized nature of the new models. They're putting in extra, on the side in a way, to add to something that's like, this is it. And so while the Darkmer models may not be like finished, we did get indications 2 weeks ago, a little bit ago, that they are working on the next models too. So it's like, it's not they can only work on one thing, so someone's rigging, someone's, it's a little more complicated, but I don't think this is a sign that they're taking super long, even though they did indicate that the first, couple will take longer, and they'll smooth out the pipeline as things go along. But I'm excited to see Darkmer. I'm excited they're working on hairstyles, and I think it's a good sign. I don't want to see them though. I want to see them. Like I have this sneaking feeling that the new models won't be in this next PA test. I don't think just because what they maybe only had the human or something, and all the new armor and everything. It's just, I don't expect it, right? Which is going to be such a tragedy for the Coast stream, I think. But yeah, I think they're working on a lot of things. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, hairstyles seem like a small thing, but when they did that reveal of the Darkmer, the Archai, and the Scar models so long ago, it was only the Scar that had any semblance of hair, if I recall correctly.
They have their ear horns.
They have like the dreads.
You're
the
talking
dreads,
about
right?
the actual hair. Yeah, they did have kind of dread-like hair stuff. Man, I hope they get super creative with the racial like accoutrements, with maybe like Darkmer having all sorts of finned or whatevers, and Archai maybe different, like kind of bump. Well, the Archai is different because I hope they have different like oh my gosh, I'm forgetting what the cracks are.
Oh, like the elemental
Yeah,
infusion,
I
like
hope
the
that they get really creative with that. There's so much opportunity for really creative, special things per race, which it's a lot of work, but
yeah.
I hope to see it, right? I did. Oh, there was another thing I wanted to note kind of on this was that remember this newsletter is a monthly recap, and so while, like I mentioned a few weeks ago, they kind of indicated that like Darkmer was getting like wrapping up. These notes might be from 2 weeks ago, so it's very possible that this information isn't necessarily the current state as of exactly now, but things that have happened in the last month. Just throwing it out there.
Yep, totally fair, totally fair. On speaking of the Darkmer models, they said that they've completed the skinning and rig for the Darkmer male model, so that's cool. And that's the roadmap. I mean, basically, that's a good roadmap wrap up for the month. But wasn't the entirety of the newsletter? Again, there was more going on here. They did sort of a round table of the VR staff and talked about what they were thankful for. We heard from a good number of them, not all of them, which I thought was one notable exception. I'll mention in a minute. But it is the season for giving thanks and being grateful. And what we got was a very wholesome meal, of course, with a few little newsworthy morsels stuffed into the bird as well. So here's a few little succulent deep cuts from this course of dinner. I couldn't resist. I had to do it. I was bored, whatever.
You went nuts with this part.
I did. I went cranberries, if you will. So Ben Dean tempted us with some savory aromas wafting from VR's kitchen, telling us more about the pre-alphas coming, telling us that there are more pre-alphas coming up. He said very soon they'll have lots of testing sessions and be able to focus more on content and world. So,
if it wasn't for at least one, if not two, upcoming test sessions this month being announced, I feel like this would have fallen so flat. Don't let us down, Ben.
Yeah. Come on, Ben. Serve those beans. We need beans with our dinner here. Come on. The next one that I looked at was the one from Duarte Ferreria. I can't say his last name. I'll butcher it. So I'll just say Duarte. He's their animator and rigger, and this put a smile on my face when they said they were really grateful for all the sweet comments they got from the community for the emote and that they did on the human male model reveal, if you'll remember that one.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loved that. So Duarte said that the animation was meant to only be a showcase for our face rigging, but the reaction that they got was totally amazing. So it sounds like Duarte got his dessert a little earlier than expected. So
I will say, if that was the demo, can't wait for the real thing. It's well deserved, Duarte.
Yes, absolutely. And then Leonardo Evangelisti welcomed us into their home, saying that they managed to almost complete all the buildings that we will use to populate Avelia's region over the last 7 months. So that's what they are grateful for. So just a few little notes from that roundtable. Again, another one of the exception was Kyle Olson wasn't in there for anything. So I just get the sense that he's so busy working on the programming and the programming side of things that he's like, I'm grateful to be able to program, so leave me alone and let me program. Exactly. I get the sense every time we've heard from Kyle, he's so into his programming and just wants to like sort of focus on that. So
totally, we are thankful for Kyle. I'll throw that.
Absolutely. This project would not be where it is right now without Kyle, from everything I've heard. So you can chew on that, and you can also wash it down with some really nice concept art that VR debuted in this newsletter. Now, Desiree, I don't know what you think, but I believe a lot of this artwork is the Hangor region of Avendir's Pass, and that's based on some of the symbols, some landmarks, and there aren't any notations on any of the concept art they showed, but I'm pretty solidly believing that it's Hangor. What do you think?
Yeah, I have this feeling that they showed this at some point. Like I don't know. I hopefully I'm not like sharing something that I'm crossing wires and getting mixed up between things that I shouldn't talk about. But I'm like, I feel like I've seen these.
No, I don't think so.
But I think you're right. I think this is a lot of Hangor stuff. I mean, it screams that, even with the cliffs, you know, like,
yeah,
cliffs there.
And if you look at the you know, like you see like the big sort of bird's nest tower, like the lookout towers on the top of the cliffs there. If you were to think back to the video that we did here at Pantheon Plus when Minus led us into Hangor for that exclusive look at some pre-alpha footage that VR gave us permission to do, there's a spot in that video where the camera sort of pans up and you can see one of these towers absolutely in game. So that's why I'm pretty solid.
Oh, where Ronak died.
Hangor. No, not where Ronak died.
Okay.
It was another part. I mean, I died. I died when we went into an orc cave and I foolishly followed Minus in unstealth, but it was right before that moment.
Okay.
The camera kind of pans up and yeah, you know, it's a good guess though. I mean, very likely. So just overall, very satisfying newsletter in my opinion. I feel like I need to like unbuckle the belt and digest for a while now. So, but any post feast thoughts from you, Desmond?
I'm stuffed, Derek. I think we got most of it. A few little things like they added a new mining node. They're also placing nodes in Avendir's Pass. Also, they're working on this new robe style set of armor, which honestly, I'll be eager to see how that comes out because we've been lacking in robes lately. Really, though, I think you caught most of it. And let's be honest, the biggest takeaway from this newsletter is just that PA sessions are continuing and they've really been cranking it out to make sure that happens. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that progress and then, you know, hopefully soon getting to share all that experience with the public kind of vicariously through I'm so excited for that, just for the sake of being like, yeah, so this is like kind of what we're experiencing and you can see it.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me for this newsletter is not only the tests, but all the other updates that are coming along with the test. It's not just the optimizations. I love that there's extra content that they just sort of came out of nowhere to include as part of this test. I think that speaks volumes for what they're up to, and we can just reaffirms that we should have faith that they know what they're doing and they're working on it, right? So again, let's shift gears and talk about what's coming up this week on our channel here on Pantheon Plus with our friends. We have Monday, Drac and the Vanguard crew, After Dark, playing midnight Eastern, playing some Vanguard on our Pantheon Plus Twitch channel. That's always a good time. We are back in Embers Adrift, continuing on with our Embers adventures on the MMO 101 and the 201. So the Tuesday is the 101. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern on our Twitch channel. And then on Thursday is the 201 at 7 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel where we stream it live. And we are continuing on with that game. I think we're all level 10-ish right now and looking forward to some more adventures in that area. So Sparrow is playing some WoW on her channel. That's 9 p.m. Wow. I don't know why I said it like that. That was weird. 9 p.m. Eastern on her Twitch channel. That is Sparrow playing that. And then on Friday, Redbeardflynn doing a bit of a wrap up of MMOs in 2023 on his YouTube channel. Go over and check that out if you haven't already. Saturday night, as always, Cringe Pony TV is on Nathan Napalm's channel. That's midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Central. And I also want to mention that on the calendars coming up, we've got a new inclusions. It's going to be Mox and Sakari, the fellows from Disparate Worlds, who are now going to be adding in their content to our calendar so we can promote their stuff. And if you don't know Disparate Worlds, you should definitely go check it out. They do like a Pantheon, not versus, but Pantheon and Ashes of Creation side by side sort of analysis as the games are in development. So it's really interesting to see that. And I'm still working on my lore video for the pronunciation stuff. And I just
a lore video working out. You gonna help people help people pronounce some lore terminology? You're gonna.
That's right. Sorry. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I just recorded the voiceover for it before we started recording.
There's like perfect opportunity for that that reference.
Yeah, it totally is. So yeah, so that's it for November 28th through to December 4th on our channel. And it's it for this week's VR News and Notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, we've got some Community Spotlight here. So as just kind of mentioned, we got some Disparate Worlds cranking out some content. And so one of their new features, which is a kind of short form news update, very rapid kind of, in response to the newsletter. I think they had this up like within 24 hours or something.
It was pretty quick.
So this is Pantheon Brief, November 22 newsletter, pre-alpha announcement, where they, Mox just kind of hits on the main points, obviously, PA and stuff like that. So like it seems like they're committing to that kind of thing. So if you just want those really quick updates, I mean, boom, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they've got a bit of a reaction stream or review video as they call it of our good friend Redbeardflynn's recent Pantheon worries video. Honestly, it's a good bit of fun. And they got into it. They got into it.
I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I'm gonna do it.
I think it's worth checking out. I'm not big on like reaction videos, but it's more than just like reaction. It's they give their thoughts and stuff. It's really great. I think it was overall pretty wholesome. Nice. The VOD of that is on YouTube. I believe that's where they streamed it. So go check that out. And the next one, I'm going to pull a bit of a cheater here. If you recall, Bazgrim's stream watch party was going on while I was scripting last week. But there was a little nugget that he pulled from that, 3+ hour stream. That's really, really great. It's just a good listen. Baz kind of gave his, Joppa-esque elevator pitch, on, why the heck he's still so into following Pantheon after all these years. It was a question that came up in chat, and he just, gave a great answer, and, they kind of chat about stuff around that. So you guys might enjoy that, and it's nice to have it kind of pulled out of the really long stream if you can't attend the whole thing, because it was a good moment, right?
Yeah, I think he should do more stuff like that. I think that's a really good idea. I enjoyed listening to, just a re-understanding why he's been around for so long. I mean, just it's funny, you see some of those pictures, like the thumbnail he used with him and Ronik and Brad sitting at a table, right? And you just remember, like, he's been there since day one, and Bazgrim has more history with this game than anybody. And he is, more than qualified to say why you should continue to have faith, and why you should stick around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree. He should do more of those clips, for sure. Worked out nice. And of course, Baz also did a Baz Flash, just right after that newsletter, kind of wrapping up those important bits in just 60 seconds. So that's
card flip and everything.
And that's on his shorts on YouTube. So yeah. Also worth noting that Redbeardflynn does a similar short series covering multiple MMOs in like the quick news bits, and he just so happened to hit on the upcoming PA sessions for Pantheon. So that's also in his shorts down below as well. But that's gonna be it for this week's Community Spotlight.
Sit back and relax. It's time for the lore you know. All right, so you'll see our lore keepers of the week. We have another 4 individuals who chimed in with the answer, and the questions last week. The questions last week were, what is the home of the elves? And that would be Fairthale. And the elves are the only race in Pantheon where they have 2 sort of branches of the race that are both playable by players, and that is the Ember Elves and the Ashen Elves. So that is the answer.
I can't help but point
week.
out the branches.
I know.
Sorry,
But
I'll go away now.
and that's the way when Jan's talked about it, he does describe it that way. He describes them as being the branches. I mean, everything's about trees with elves, right?
Yep, love it.
I mean, you can't have an elf without a tree reference in there somewhere. So I went with a little bit of a tougher question this week, but there's a reason for that, and you can actually find the answer if you look closely at the concept art from the newsletter this week. So, what type of creature resides in Hangor? So, remember we talked about the concept art. I was convinced that it was of Hangor. So, what type of creature resides in that area? And the second question is, what is the name of their clan? So even that question kind of tells you a little bit of a hint as to what we're looking for here. So that's where you're going to find your answers this week. Now, in terms of the name of the clan, you can find that on our playlist on Theric's Lore Library here on the YouTube channel. I don't think it's actually on the official website yet. It used to be, but it's not. But just check out the Lore Library. You'll find something that made point you in the
It's
right
not
direction.
Hangorian, I promise. Just to get that out of the way.
Hangorian. Yeah. Well, and I mentioned a video referenced earlier where we had exclusive permission to show some PA footage when Minus was leading the group. If you watch that video, you'll see the name that I'm
it's in a lot of places. I think the savvy listener will be able to break it down.
Exactly. I'm so proud of the lore keepers that we get in the answers, because it just feels like, some learning has gone on and there's like some investment in learning the lore. And I just think it like creates so much synergy with following a game in development like this. So if you want to leave your answers, you can leave them in the YouTube comments. You can join our Discord, enter them in the Lore You Know channel. You can also DM me if you want to just do it that way to prevent it from being a spoiler for anybody else. But I would strongly encourage everybody to give it a shot. And that is the Lore You Know. All right, Desrin, that's another week down, another show in the books. Our morning, we have the whole day in front of us. What are you going to do with the rest of the day?
I'm awake now. I'm gonna have to listen to the beginning and end of this just to hear how my voice has changed since since first getting up, and now I've been all excited and caffeinated. And, we've gone from Desrin 1.0 to 2.0 all in the span of about an hour.
Ooh. Nice. Well, see, for me, it's the opposite. I degrade over the course of the day. I start at my best version, and then as time goes on, I degrade into Theric 0.2 by the end of the day, where I'm just, literally a fifth of the man I used to be at the beginning of the day.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's awesome that everyone joined us. It's great because we're recording in the morning for once, and we're going to be sharing this with everyone in the morning too. I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does feel good. I agree. So everybody check the Pantheon Plus calendar for the week. Make sure to share the show if you have somebody who might be interested. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And with that, we will be back next Sunday for episode 129, and we will see you then.
See you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.